Hi, everybody. I'm Seth. And I guess for Q&A, let's maybe just hold that till the end. So I wanted to share kind of some concepts that are coming down the pipe for WordPress and Gutenberg Phase 3, especially regarding around real-time multiple user collaboration a la Google Docs, which is very exciting functionality for all of us to gain. And I wanted to go over a concept that we've been kind of working on at Pew. We call it a synced entity block. I'll go into a little bit more about what that is, but behind it, we're using kind of, I think, cutting edge hooks and systems now in Gutenberg that more and more of the functionality of WordPress is transitioning to support future things like real-time collaboration. So I'm going to give a pretty technical demo here. I'll go through some of the blocks that we've created that employ the system, talk about why you might want to utilize this kind of concept for various parts of your site, and go through a little bit of the code here and there, and then leave it open for some questions. So the first thing I wanted to show was, here we go. I tweeted out, I guess, a couple weeks ago now about this kind of new concept that we have called a block area module. This is a prime example of what we call a synced entity block. It allows you to almost kind of like a template part or a reusable block, except with greater editorial control. So let's just jump into the site editor, and let me open up the category page, category archive. Now, I really don't want editors in this page, but I might have content that needs to be featured at the top of this page. So I'm kind of in a conundrum right now. There are some block locking and some user permissions in Gutenberg currently, or I guess the block editor, site editor, sorry. I will refer to it as Gutenberg throughout this. I know there's some kerfuffle about whether or not we should use our name, but I will. So there's not, not enough user permission. So we really don't want to kind of have editors or authors in here, but we do need them to be able to push content to the top of this page. Enter block area modules. So you'll see I already have kind of a placeholder here. Nothing can be found. Let me just slot in something new. So let's say I need an area of this theme of this site where I need kind of not people with site editor access or appearance access to be able to curate content. I can define a block area. I already have one made for their lead stories. And then I'm going to select whether or not we're going to inherit content from this category. In this case, because it's just the category archive default, this will just say whatever category I'm on, use that category to pull in content. So I'm going to say yes, and we're going to insert the block area. There's nothing in here. That's not a surprise. Let's go make a new module, and we'll see how this kind of comes together. So maybe what I want to do is put a few featured stories in there. So I'm going to drop in some sample stories real quick. This will take a little while because my local dev is a little slow right now. I'll just let these find a few posts. Grab some of these. These aren't any images right now. You're seeing things off my local dev. There's some differences between production, obviously. So I've got this test module. I'm going to assign it a category, or we rename that to topics, just make it easier on editors. Let's just say the religion category. And the area that I want this content to appear in, topic lead, and I'm going to publish that. Now, what's great about this setup is, let's say this is tomorrow's homepage. Because this is just kind of a normal post, we could schedule this out to publish at a later date or time. That's another thing that you're kind of missing from template parts right now. So let's come back into this category archive template. And let's drop in that block area again. Say lead. And we're just going to pick whatever category we can find. In this case, because there is nothing else to fill in this content, it's grabbing the only content it can find, which is this religion one. And now we have this content in here. Pretty cool. Now I can have editors be slotting in content to a template area without gaining them access to the site editor. So if I were to make some changes, let's say, put some dummy text in here, or maybe this is all bold or something. Normally, what you would need to do to see these updates is refresh the page. But because we are using entities throughout WordPress core data and data system, you also get these updates in real time. To kind of show how this is actually working, let's put these side by side. And I'll give myself a little bit of breathing room here. And so you can see I have two instances of the editor, not two different users yet, that's coming, but I have two instances of the editor with this experiment turned on in Gutenberg. And what you'll see is because this main block, my block area module block is using entities, all of its content is getting updated and shared in real time between the editors. So we can be working on this content together if there was another user here, or maybe for other contexts, maybe you need to design this content in a kind of mobile view, but also see what it's going to look like in desktop. You could do that too. So you can kind of imagine the different workflows this would enable you. What's also great is, oops, we'll see if this works. This also should support kind of nice offline recovery. So if I refresh this page without saving any of the content, it should bring it all back. I could go into a lot of what's happening in the back end to make that a possibility, but that's just one example of kind of a quick example of this block area modules and what that would enable. Another instance, in this case, this was kind of, hey, I need to be able to slot in editorial content into a template. The other use case you might have is content that you want to push to multiple posts or multiple pages or whatever content, but edit it centrally in one place and then have that update everywhere that it appears. For us, that's things like quizzes and charts. So we're kind of known for our charts at the Pew Research Center. They might be included in a number of posts. We might have a particular chart that does really well that we use in multiple pieces of content. If we update this content regularly, so we don't want to go through 10 different posts hunting down where this chart was included and have to go update it multiple times. So now we can just put it in once. So let me just show you what that might look like. So for us, we have, oops, go away, IT pop-up. We have a chart builder plugin that I've demoed multiple times on other live streams. You'll get a glimpse of it here. This will be made available to the public soon, but for now, this source code is going to be kept under wraps. I'm going to insert a synced chart. In this case, this is referencing a post type called chart. Inside of it is a chart block. So let's just search for an existing one. See what we can find. That's actually a really great chart. So for chart builder is comprised of a table, obviously to feed data to the chart, and then oops, my browser is very angry. Let me refresh this real quick. on. Always, there always must be a technical difficulty when giving a demo. Hope this works.
Are you really even demoing if there isn't some kind of glitch?
I know. All right, let's try that again. A chart. Here we go. Okay, so we've got all our data, and then down at the bottom, we actually have the chart in the block editor. As you update data, this is going to change in real time. I'm not going to play with this too much because this is actually in production. But let's just change some of these values. You know, does this chart make sense? No, but you can see what's going on here. Data gets updated in real time, and we have a bunch of file options, which not even I know all of what they do, but we'll just play around with some of these to give you an idea. You know, you could put on different dots, whatever. There's a lot of charting options. I'm not going to go into all these. That's not the point of this demonstration. The point is that this content gets saved elsewhere, not in this post. So I could have a bunch of other content in here. Maybe I've got a bunch of paragraphs that go along with this post, you know, and then I've got a chart and maybe a few other charts. Let's save that real quick and let's open up a new post. Oops. Well, there we go. Now in this other post, once again, I want to bring in that same chart, right? Very easy. There you go. Here is the same chart. You know, we've got all the same visualization here so that I can save this chart once and bring it in multiple places. What's great though is I don't have to go find that singular chart in WordPress admin. I can just go to the post that's referencing it because we're all editing from the same object. So any changes here will get changed over here. Now, let me also do one more example. And that is of quizzes. For quizzes, the use case here is a little bit different. It's not a matter of we want to propagate quizzes across a bunch of different content types. It might be we have a quiz. It is a singular different thing. It's not really meant to be included in another post. Has some database stuff that goes along with it. But we do maybe want to embed that into another post. So in this case, we are offering the ability to have a post. You can bring in a quiz. I'll bring in our top piece of content, the political typology quiz. And that's going to bring in our quiz builder plugin, which once again, I don't have to have a separate window open to edit this content that might live elsewhere. I can edit it all in one place. And that is the quiz example. Let me jump into some of the code and kind of show you how this is working. I'll go back to block area modules as a demonstration of that. Okay, we'll let that load and I will open up some code on GitHub for you all. So everything I'm about to show you is already available if you'd like to check it out. This is from our PRC Platform Core plugin. We have a series of plugins that we will be releasing open source for everybody that kind of make up the totality of our publishing platform. They're there for you to learn, not to use. You really shouldn't expect them to be able to install on your WordPress site and they work. There's a lot of other kind of stuff that's necessary that we can't release, but this would get you a good bit of the way. So let me go in here real quick and let's open up block area modules. And I'll get into what is really the meat of this implementation here. What makes all this work? So block area modules. Block area, it's just a block. It's one block. It's referencing a post type called block areas. The first thing that we need to do when we load the block is we need to get some information about the latest block module post. We can use useEntityRecords from WordPress core data to do exactly that. I also think this might be available to get via select, like you could just do, use select core, useEntityRecords. I think, I'm not entirely sure. But you can also just import it directly from the core data package. This is just a little hook that I made to kind of keep this code clean. And what I'm doing here is with useEntityRecords, I'm saying I need to get an entity. It is a post type entity. You could also do taxonomy. There's also, I can post links for this. There's a list of entities that you can access, things like user, options, site information, etc. But I'm just going to focus on posts. So I need to get a post type. What is that post type? In this case, I have a little constants file. It's block area module. And then what are my query args? These are just like WP query arguments. There's a few REST API specific ones, what my context is, for example. And I want to get posts by date that are newest first, specifically in this category and in my little block area taxonomy, which is what we use to say, this location, that location. And I'm changing the text relation. So simple WP query args that we should all be familiar with. And then this is just a little extra one. This just turns it on or off. All you really need is post type, what the post type is, and some simple WP query args. This will return a list of posts. I only want to get the most recent one, so I'm doing that right here, and I'm just getting the ID for that thing. So this is just a little hook to get me the most recent block area module post that matches, this category and these taxonomy conditions and get me its ID. Then the next part is using useEntityBlockEditor, also from WordPress core data. What this does is, given a post, an object type, in this case, post type of block area, and an ID, the ID that we got with that little hook I wrote, what this does is it gets the content, post content from this object, and it returns it as blocks, which you see here. It also provides you a function to update those blocks back on the main object, and a function to handle changes to the content as you're changing it back on the main post. You pass those into useEntityBlockProps. You just tell it, hey, actually, your blocks are not what you think they are. They are something I'm setting up higher above. They're coming from this useEntityBlockEditor. So I pass that down there. You give it the on input and on change functions. That way it knows, hey, when you change content, you're not posting it back into this main post. You're posting it at this other post. And that's that. It's really two hooks. If you didn't need to do some kind of lookup on what the ID is, you could just pass that information in and you'd be good to go. And it's really that simple. Using these new hooks, useEntityProvider, useEntityProp, useEntityRecords, useEntityBlockEditor, there's a lot of them, open you up to automatically gaining that kind of WordPress real-time collaboration features when it finally launches later. I don't know when. So that's Synced Entity Blocks. That's a little demo of what we're doing and how you can use these new hooks. Are there any questions?
You can put your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature. And I will call on you if you would like to ask your questions over voice. It was really, really cool, by the way. I really enjoyed watching that.
Thank you.
I'm extremely jealous of your WordPress now.
Everything that we're doing, the big reason to, it would be easy, right? You could just make a block and it maybe has a text field and you just put some post IDs in there and you're like, yeah, pull that content in on the front end. There you go. We really want to deliver a really high fidelity kind of one-to-one editing experience for our editors and our designers too. So these concepts, this functionality allows you to do that pretty easily.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of developers I find don't spend a lot of time thinking about the editorial experience, but the editorial experience really does have a lot of influence on the results you're going to get on the front end. So it's very cool to see an editorial workflow implemented so thoughtfully.
Well, and as a manager of other developers, as a person that has to manage like resources as people, this approach lets us hand off a lot of tasks that used to be punted to us. We don't need to
Sure.
make a page template. You go make the page template. You need to make style changes to the site. That's not a CSS file anymore. Go into the style engine and the site editor, make those. Any number of things that we used to have to do, quizzes, for example, charts, all that stuff had to be hand coded. Now an editor can kind of just drag and drop and build all that.
That's awesome.
Seth, my question is a little selfish. I am the webmaster designer of dcbeer.com, and so it functions as a publication, although we have a fairly small body of contributors. How could I basically pull down everything that Pew is making public and incorporate that? You said that there are some things that aren't exactly plug and play, and
Yeah.
like, how do I get to that point?
So I've been, I think, pretty open about this. We are undergoing a pretty major refactor right now. A lot of it is hooking a lot of that functionality and custom blocks we've built over the last 3-4 years into this new kind of entities system and concept, as well as right now we run a WordPress multi-site with 10, 12 different subsites that we need to manage. We're collapsing all that down to one site, which will be easier for us to manage and easier for our editors to kind of work together once real-time collaboration comes. So a lot of this is work in progress, but the code is up there on GitHub. And a lot of what we're doing now with these plugins as we refactor them are making them so that anybody could install them. There will be some things specifically around copyright that we can't release. For example, we use font awesome icons pretty heavily throughout, just because they're great little icons and they make it easier for us to build interfaces that are easy for editors to use. But obviously that requires a license. So we have a PRC icons plugin that handles providing icons to all of our plugins and blocks and things. You won't get that. You'll just have a little question mark on a lot of these things. So there will be some stuff where it just won't look right, but it will function. So all of that is coming. I would say if you want to check out things first, let me drop some links in the chat. So like I said, we're releasing most of what kind of makes our platform tick. This query should be good for you all. So a lot of that starts off with the platform plugin. This is a lot of our core data types, taxonomies, the way that different things that we do in WordPress. For example, we link posts together a lot. Technically the post object does not have post parent. We extend that in the REST API in this plugin to post so that we can do post-to-post relationships, things like that. So there's a lot of stuff in here that's not just like visual blocks, but this is the base of what we make our system out of. So that's available now on PRC Platform Core Develop. You can see kind of how we're progressing with this refactor. You'll also see PRC Chart Builder. I believe Ben pushed up. Yeah, he just pushed up a new build to develop the other day. This plugin, I know there's a lot of demand for this plugin. This also is the trickiest one from us from a kind of branding copyright perspective, as you can imagine. So what this plugin, we built this, we knew we wanted to release this to the public and we knew there'd be some branding issues. So this plugin, PRC Chart Builder, is the block builder, but it's not the charting library. We built the plugin such that you could conceivably slot in any charting library. We have a custom one that we've built off of Airbnb's VisX component library. We had prototyped one off of Victory charts before that. And if you really wanted to do it, you could probably slot in high charts somehow. But that plugin provides you the interface for building and editing charts inside of Gutenberg. So that one, it would probably be the hardest for someone to get going. It's not going to be the most plug and play because you're going to need to provide a charting library on the back end. We'll see what we can provide as some examples to get people going. And then the other two big ones obviously are Quiz Builder, which powers our political typology quiz. If you haven't taken that, I suggest you give it a go. Let me drop a link. This is by far our most popular piece of content every single year, and it's one of our more technically complex block building plugins. So everything that you see in that quiz is built by an editor. We have functionality like conditional questions. All of that interface is available for an editor to kind of pick and choose how the quiz works. So in a way, what you have here is a drag and drop web app builder with Quiz Builder. So that one's really interesting. The source code's not up there yet. That one needs a pretty major refactor for what we're going for. So that'll be probably in 2 months' time. You'll see code go up there. And then lastly, oh, sorry, what was that?
I'm as I'm going through GitHub, I'm just noticing that a lot of these are readmes, but I don't see much else. So these are like placeholders
to the develop branch. So we're not posting anything to main right now because these are not intended for people to use. But on the platform core and the chart builder plugin, if you switch to the develop branch, you'll see code there. And then lastly is the block library. Obviously, we are going to release that publicly, and that should just work for people right out of the box. Minus some missing icons, you should be able to use that. Maybe there might be a few blocks that you might not be able to use, but for the most part, that'll work. So there's a lot here. We're kind of thinking this as a rear alternative to something like Newspack. Which can get up there in price with maybe some functionality that they don't have. Bookmark that page. All these repos are going to be updated on a semi-regular basis. We don't work out of these repos. These are just for kind of public consumption. We're doing a lot and we're releasing it all.
I think this is incredible work and a testament to really the spirit of WordPress and giving back to the community. I think we will owe a debt of gratitude to Pew when the first iteration of this gets made public.
We're happy to give it back to the community. WordPress has enabled a lot for us. We have, I think, more exciting stuff planned for next year. We're really attempting to bring the whole organization into WordPress. I don't know, for most of you, probably your editors work in Word and then copy into WordPress. We really want to eliminate that and kind of, as we gain things like editor comments and real-time collaboration, we think that WordPress could replace a lot of pieces of software for us because we can customize the UI and customize so much of it. So we're happy to give it back to the WordPress community.
And as a component of either the current evolution of the project or what you plan on the future, do you all have an editorial calendar wrapped into that?
Not yet. There's actually a lot of work internally on establishing like an editorial calendar for everybody. So once that's established, once I get my hands on it, I will bring that into WordPress. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to be doing for editor features yet. We're still kind of waiting to see where things are going, in the Gutenberg project. We're going to let them lead. We've tried to tie our roadmap to Gutenberg's roadmap for the last 4 years, so we've been kind of in lockstep with advancement there. So whatever starts to come to be for editor features there, we'll pick up on and build off of.
And how many people are on your team as a whole, development design wise?
There are 3 other developers on my team. We do have a team of, let's say, 5 designers at this point. So we have a pretty good kind of digital team in place. But But for the most part, actually, what you see out of here is mainly myself and one other developer on my team, Ben Warmold. He's the lead developer on our Chart Builder product. It's mostly been us for the last couple of years. Our other two developers are dedicated to interactive products, databases, maps, things like that. And we pull them into block work when they have bandwidth, but that's not their primary responsibility. So for the most part, it's been two people for 4 years building all this.
It's an amazing body of work for you all. Anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, you can drop them in the chat. You don't have to come off mute if you don't want to.
So Jonathan Taylor asked, looking at the block area module, how do you handle different roles, authors, editors, custom, etc., where some roles may not have access to all the features?
That is actually a great question, and I can demonstrate how you can handle that. There is another hook that you all should be familiar with, and that is, give me 1 second. So I will show off another thing. This is a new system, part of this refactor that I just finished up or got mostly complete yesterday. Where is use resource versions? Okay, let me show you all of this. So, as I said, we do kind of have a pretty heavy-handed usage of post-to-post relationships across our platform. Let me open up one of these. Our biggest usage is something we call our report package. So that's one main post, your main post that you come into with a bunch of back chapters. Easier to digest these really long reports into multiple posts this way, and easier just to kind of handle in the editor than a 10-page long post in the editor. So we break those up into multiple posts. And what we do is, as I said, we extend post parent in the REST API to just regular post objects so that we can, you'll see here in this back chapter panel, link a bunch of posts to the main posts and kind of build a table of contents of sorts. This functionality, this panel right here, is something that we want our producers to be able to use, but not like an author. We don't want authors linking posts together. That could get crazy. They don't know what they're doing, right? So let me switch to a different user. I can remember the username and password for my sample person. And switch my screen quick. I love Arc Browser. I don't know if any of you have used Arc Browser, but Arc Browser uses a lot of memory, so be careful if you use it. And
Or have Clean My Mac handy. You can purge your memory.
Yeah. Okay, let me switch. How do I switch screens? Oh my goodness. Stop share. There we go. And let's open up this incognito window. Okay, so logged in with a different user, this time a kind of lower user on the totem pole. This person is just an author. You'll see that all of this is disabled. I played around with the idea of like, do I just disable this plugin entirely? I thought, no, it might be good for an author to be able to see that, there's a PDF here and see what the child posts are, but you'll see they can't edit anything. This is just a simple flag that is enabled by another WordPress core data hook called use resource permissions. It's pretty easy to use. It works a lot like the other hooks that I showed you. You tell it what the content type is, in this case, a post type. For their example, it's pages. And for us, it was block area. There's an additional property you can pass, which is an ID. So you can say, does this person have, access to this specific post, because different user roles obviously have different post level permissions. And you can pull out 3 different, I think, variables at this point: can create, can delete, maybe can edit. I think there's some additional ones coming, but this is an easy way to check user permissions for those 3 at least. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you probably have to tap into the REST API at this point. So that's a good question. Let me drop this link here in the chat. And that is a very quick way to check for user permissions.
One of the I guess sort of non-canonical plugins that I'm reliant on for slightly better governance than used to be afforded WordPress is Yoast's version of the duplicate content. And I know that it kind of splits off posts in interesting ways. Do you know the potential of how duplicating or drafting a post that invokes your blocks do you know how it would interact with Yoast duplicate post?
I mean, it should be fine. We've given a lot of thought to that, about how kind of data transports across, for us, pre-production servers, test servers, you name it. So for some of these things, the synced entity blocks for specifically, most of them have one attribute. It's just ID. Obviously, if you duplicated a post that had one of these synced blocks in it, it would just bring in that block that has the ID. That's it. You're not duplicating any content. Also, easily, you could just copy and paste that block into anything else. As for like the real-time collaboration bit of this, that I am unaware of at this point. This is all very experimental. So what effects that might have, I don't know just yet.
Yeah, in my previous role, I worked for a university, and quite frequently we had reasons for needing to maybe sunset an existing post with specific content, but they wanted to archive it and introduce new content with the same slug. So I'm just kind of trying to game out like how a circumstance like that would work. But it seems like these block entities are just quantum entangled with each other wherever they are
pretty much
on a page, right? So they are the source of truth, and the page content doesn't get in the way.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's the great thing about this approach, is it does make it easier to kind of move content around or archive content. If you have maybe it's just a chart in this page, right, that you want to archive. If that content for that actually lives elsewhere, then it's accessible elsewhere, and you can just do whatever with that one page, change the slug, delete it altogether, and you're fine.
Would all of this work with a headless approach?
I don't see why it wouldn't. On the front end, I didn't really show that off, but on the front end of the code, there's pretty simple. It's get the attribute, get the ID, do get post on that ID, and then take the post content and run it through the content apply filters. And that's all. That's it. And then of course it's outputting the blocks that are in there. So I would imagine if you're doing headless, you probably need to pull that content in by a REST API. You'd have the ID, so you would be able to go get that specific post and say, give me the post content for that thing. So I don't imagine this concept would not work with. I don't think this would not work with headless. I do think it would work with headless.